Today, we're gonna have a serious discussion about the Apple ecosystem. The question is the Apple ecosystem the ultimate tech paradise, or in some regard, is it sort of like a golden cage? If you're interested in Apple's products, you should probably choose to be in the Apple ecosystem because you actually think it's the best for you, rather than just being in it because it's what's familiar and you're just not apprised of what else is out there. But if you are in the Apple ecosystem and you want to learn how to shoot professional looking video on your iPhone, as opposed to straight out of the box iPhone video that looks and sounds like this without any expert settings or knowledge, then you need to check out Pro iPhone Video Essentials. That's my latest course, and if you pre-order today, you'll get instant access to my Learning to Be Productive course for free. It's linked up down in the description, so check it out. Let's start by talking about what a tech ecosystem is. Obviously, you're looking at pieces of one right here, but it's a network of interconnected products and services designed to work seamlessly together. The Apple Watch, for instance, can unlock my Mac, and it can also approve purchases that I'm making on the Apple TV. Speaking of Apple TV, I can control what I'm watching using my voice through the HomePods. iPads and Macs can not only share files, but they can share a keyboard and mouse for universal control. It's features like those that can enhance your user experience by providing a cohesive, integrated environment. However, regardless of the company, is the ecosystem you're getting into a trap? A good analogy might be thinking of a top-rated ecosystem as a luxurious resort that has everything you need right at your fingertips. But stepping out of that environment might feel kind of daunting once you're used to it. And on the flip side, it might become too controlling, almost like a beautiful prison. In the tech space, Apple's ecosystem is really second to none. It's the player that everyone's catching up to, but there are other players in the space: Samsung, Google, Amazon, even Meta. So before we come back and talk about where we are right now in the Apple ecosystem, let's talk about when the Apple ecosystem started. Pause real quick if you want to and think to yourself, what year or what product really kicked off what we would think of as the Apple ecosystem? If your answer was that the Apple ecosystem began taking shape with the release of the first iPod, which not only revolutionized music consumption, but also created a foundation for the future of interconnected devices, then congratulations, because that's my answer also. Later, of course, the first iPhone launched, and that further integrated Apple's ecosystem and turned it into a central hub for all these various devices and services. So now Apple users can take advantage of a whole array of interconnected things, not just hardware and software, as you're about to see. Although if I were to ask you what are the benefits of the Apple ecosystem, almost for sure you would say something like continuity camera, where you can use your iPhone as a webcam, or AirDrop for quick file sharing between your devices, universal control, which I mentioned earlier, we can control multiple devices with one input. Maybe you mentioned iCloud with that centralized storage and backup. All this stuff is really cool, but that's not the extent of the full Apple ecosystem. You also have to think about Apple's support services. You've got Apple Care Plus. If one of your devices has an issue, there's a decent chance that there's an actual physical Apple store in your location where you can take your device in and talk to a real person at the Genius Bar. And that is definitely part of the Apple ecosystem as well. If your Pixel phone breaks down or your Galaxy even breaks down, do you have a store right there from Google or Samsung where you can go? Of course, I love using Apple Pay when I go to the store. That's part of the Apple ecosystem. It's pretty insane to be able to share contact information with somebody else that has an iPhone really easily, wirelessly. SharePlay and being able to share experiences with other people, maybe that aren't even in the room with you. That is also part of the Apple ecosystem, as is family sharing. If you have multiple people in the family with Apple devices, let's say you're a parent and you want to set up an Apple Watch or an iPhone, for instance, for your kid, well, you can do that, and you can share purchases and downloads between the family. AirTags, I don't know if anybody out there is still really excited about those. You don't hear a lot about them anymore, but they are part of the Find My network. Find My is built into the new Apple Pencil Pro and a bunch of other Apple devices. That's all part of the Apple ecosystem. Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus, Apple TV, the list goes on, and we're barely scratching the surface, to be honest. But I don't want to paint an overly rosy picture here of the Apple ecosystem. Life inside the ecosystem can be very good, but also, you know, there's some things that people don't love. The dongles, for instance. Above everything else, the biggest complaint or critique of the Apple ecosystem is probably that it's a quote unquote closed ecosystem. Let's say I've got an Android phone. Well, I can't use that with an Apple Watch because Apple's closed that option off to Android users. Well, at least a lot of the time that's the case, but not in every instance. Apple's brand is actually bigger than just things with the Apple logo on it. There's also Beats, which is owned by Apple, for instance. Beats products actually work really well with Android devices. So there's a little bit of nuance in there that sometimes gets left out. Another critique of the Apple ecosystem often centers around premium pricing. Nobody out there looks at an Apple product and thinks to themselves, oh, there's something that's super cheap. Take flagship phones, for instance. Let's say you want to get yourself the latest Google phone, which this isn't, it's just for demo purposes. Google's flagship phone, the Pixel 8 Pro, starts at $999. Actually, it's already been cut the price down to $750. Compare that to the flagship iPhone 15 Pro Max, which starts at $1199, and you can start to understand some of that price variance between Apple stuff and Android stuff. But then again, there's some nuance there as well, because a premium Samsung phone like the S24 starts at $100 more for the base model than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So once you're in an Apple ecosystem, it can be hard to jump ship because yes, it's gonna cost you a lot to replace the devices that you have, but it's also a cost in time to go and set up alternative services, for instance, and move to something like Google Photos. Well, you gotta research how to make that work and then actually set aside the time to migrate and make it happen, which is a hassle. And actually, if you're migrating from Samsung to Apple, for instance, you're gonna run into the exact same sorts of issues. So people often say, hey, I'm not gonna be so loyal to a single brand like Apple. I want that flexibility of being able to use maybe a Samsung phone or tablet with a Windows PC. And there are features that Apple doesn't have that other ecosystems do. Most famously, perhaps at the moment, would be Samsung DeX. So even though Apple is coming out with new features all the time, stuff like iPhone mirroring, which lets you control your iPhone on your Mac now, which is cool, it's not the same. One thing I want to mention that's an underrated feature of the Apple ecosystem is just all the different accessories from third parties that are available. Many more accessories available for Apple Gear, and this is just illustrative of that. I know it's just a case, and there's a lot of cases for Samsung and other products as well. There's so many iPhone accessories, MacBook accessories, iPad accessories, even HomePod accessories. It's ridiculous. All right, now I want to tell you a little bit about my experience in the Apple ecosystem and kind of give you some of my feedback and ask some honest questions at the end of this video. At the moment, I got a lot of iPhones in my life. Here in the studio, I use 4 iPhone 15s to shoot and produce all of the footage that you see here. Also here in the studio, I've got an iPad Pro, which runs Final Cut Pro, so I can shoot and control and edit if I want to, this whole multicam setup. In my pocket though, I've got the 14 Pro Max. I'm still using it. It's my go-to, my daily driver. On my desk, I'm anchored by this beast of a 14-inch MacBook Pro, which is always accompanied by an iPad Pro, in this case, the M4 iPad Pro. At the desk, I've got 2 of Apple's latest, greatest, biggest HomePods. They're stereo paired, so I've got 1 in each corner of the desk. When I need to block out external sounds, I'm using the noise cancellation on the AirPods Pro 2 here, which honestly have largely replaced Apple's over-the-ears for me. On my desk, yes, I'm using the Magic Mouse because I like it. I've got a couple Apple TV 4Ks around the house. I've got some HomePods in those same rooms because, like I said, aside from the great sound, it does sound really good. It's nice to be able to control that setup just using my voice. I got several HomePod minis laying around the house as well. Why? The main thing is, yes, for Siri, but more than that, it's really about the intercom capability and being able to communicate with different family members no matter what room in the house they're in. Sometimes I take this new Beats pill with me. This is the 2nd gen. I really love this thing. You can see my review on it. So that's a pretty brief overview of my setup. So in my office at the desk there, I feel very productive. There's certain things like video editing that I actually need to ping back and forth between my Mac and my iPad Pro, and having them both there, being able to drag files with universal control just back and forth, not even have to airdrop stuff. So just to give you one example, I can take advantage of the plugins in Final Cut Pro, the full version of Final Cut Pro on the Mac, but then I can come over here and use the Apple Pencil to draw on my videos and have it animate in Final Cut Pro on the iPad. I love the seamless way that they work together. And yeah, you could have a device that maybe merge those together like a Microsoft Surface, but then I actually get less screen real estate, don't I? Yes, you could plug your Surface into an external monitor, but I got that going on here too with Apple's Studio Display, which I love not only for the quality and the looks, but you know, those ports in the back are a lifesaver. I've got a dock plugged in there. And whenever I'm done shooting 4K 30 log ProRes footage from 4 iPhones to external drives, I can just go and plug those all into my Thunderbolt drive and get to editing without even having to worry about the export time. So that's usually how I'm spending my afternoons on a workday. In the mornings though, I'm taking full advantage of the stereo paired HomePods on the desk because I'll open up Apple Notes on the iPad Pro sitting right in front of me on its stand there. So if I want to type, I can easily do that using my keyboard, or if I want to unplug it real quick and do some handwritten notes or sketching, I can easily do that and then stick it right back. Then I'll have a big web browser open right in front of me on that studio display. or when I'm doing stuff like editing photos or video, that happens on the studio display as well. And then I keep all the periphery stuff like Finder or Apple Music or anything like that over off on that Mac screen. As I go throughout the day, the Apple Watch is my go-to place for creating reminders by voice using Siri. It tracks my sleep at night. It's how I manage my messaging most of the time. It's also usually the first place where I see notifications and alerts from my security system. And because it's an LTE version, I often can ditch my phone and still feel very connected to the world and the rest of my Apple ecosystem, to my smart home, etc., without all the bulk. CarPlay. CarPlay is a huge part of the Apple ecosystem, and I personally use that all the time. I'm always getting directions with Apple Maps. I'm using Siri to create reminders while I'm driving, or even take notes while I'm driving. I don't know if you knew you could do that, but that's the place where I usually listen to podcasts while I'm cruising around in the car. I didn't talk about it at all here today because I actually haven't even tried it yet, but you got to think about the future of AR and spatial computing, right? Now, I want to do a little soul searching, a bit of self-reflection here, and maybe this is a good opportunity for you to do that as well. The question at the beginning of this video is going to apply right here. Am I personally in the Apple ecosystem because I think it's the best for me, or is it just what's familiar? Is it what I'm used to? Do I have all these sunk costs in here and that's kind of keeping me gated in? Yeah, well, it doesn't always make it onto the channel, but I actually do love to check out other ecosystems and other devices. So even though I dabble, it is definitely something I'd like to do more of in a professional capacity. So hint, hint, Samsung, if you want to send some gear over here so I can get deeper into this, that would be great. But seriously, I think if I'm honest, the answer is a little bit of both. Like, I do have a lot of sunk costs here. It is what I'm really familiar with. I can just fly when I get into Final Cut Pro. I know all the keyboard shortcuts, right? I'm all signed up for various services and it's what works for me. But the key realization that I've had at the moment is that I don't have a reason to switch. I could switch just out of curiosity, but I very much don't have to. And that sort of tells me something right there, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is it kind of like that? Probably for me. However, do I truly believe that Apple offers the best products on the market over their rivals? And that is so subjective. But obviously, I got into this Apple ecosystem for a reason, and at the time, that basically was my reason. And I do really think that other ecosystems are doing a good job catching up. I don't think anybody can really touch Apple at the moment. I know that there's fanboys out there who are gonna argue with me, as is their right. Everyone gets to have an opinion. That's totally cool. I don't even care. I want people to use whatever works best for them. But yeah, in my humble opinion, personally, I would say that Apple does offer the best products on the market. And part of that, you know, the big meta product is the ecosystem. And I gotta tell you, I've seen a lot of people switching over to Apple, just personal people that I know that were diehard Samsung people, diehard Google people. I can think of exactly one person who's gone from Apple to Samsung out of the personal sphere of people that I know. And it was somebody who wanted the latest Samsung phone for that Zoom. And now they're like disappointed that they don't get to use the Apple Watch anymore, which is not to say that I don't know anybody who really loves, you know, PCs and Android stuff. I do. My business partner in one of my other ventures absolutely loves his foldable Samsung phone, but he's already telling me he's not even loyal to it. Maybe he's going to check out this other brand because they came out with something that was more exciting. For him, it's about having that flexibility, right, that we talked about earlier. But I do want to hear what you have to say. So drop me your comments down below. Are you in the Apple ecosystem? Are you not? Are you considering getting in, getting out? Why? Again, don't forget to check out the new course. It's like getting 2 for the price of 1. You'll get the new course, Pro iPhone Video Essentials, and Learning to Be Productive, completely free and instantly. Those are linked up down below. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.